So I found this room, and I'm like, wait a minute. I've killed Kraid. How come there's a Kraid statue here blocking my screw attack? Wait a minute, was that previous Kraid statue? Then I went all the way back, and that's when I got the charge beam. But actually, no. First I went to, I went all the way back to Hideout 1, because I'm like, oh, I haven't killed Kraid yet, otherwise this would be open. That's what that thing previously was telling me, so I don't even need to bother checking that yet, because I haven't killed the real Kraid. I killed the little mini Kraid that he put in the regular Kraid boss room, but obviously he had like a trick plan for me, and I haven't found it yet. Like, I'm going to find like the big Super Metroid Kraid or something. So all the way back to Hideout number 1, and I full cleared the area looking for secrets, and I found nothing. And then I went back up to what I thought was the path to Torian and found the charge beam. So I'm like, oh, okay. So what's happened here is not that there's another Kraid statue down in Norfair. That's actually a Ridley statue that doesn't use a Ridley graphic for whatever reason. Just because there's not a small Ridley in the game's code, he had to use what he had, which was just a Kraid sprite. So kind of misleading, and it's even sillier once we do actually need to go to the path to Torian, because it's just 2 Kraid sprites back to back. So we cannot get the screw attack until we kill Ridley. There is actually this energy tank in the original. It is in this position. I didn't bother getting it in the original Metroid because you can only carry 6 energy tanks anyway. So there's no reason to come all the way up and around. And there's already more than 6. I think there's 7 on the route that I take. And I even concluded that getting the one in Kraid's room would be better than getting the one behind Ridley, because it saves me 10 missiles for Torian. So, the charge beam is gated behind Kraid, and the screw attack is gated behind Ridley. Which is a thing, again, it feels like that decision was made because Zero Mission did that kind of stuff. It wasn't literally boss gating like that, but they had the unknown items. Items that you can get to earlier in the game that weren't in the NES Metroid that got unlocked much later. So you play through most of the NES Metroid content with the NES Metroid stuff, and then at the end of the game, when you get Samus's powered up, her better power suit at the end of the stealth section, you get all of kind of the Super Metroid equipment. I think there's just missiles through that door. I think I want to go left through here. And this will loop all the way back around, because we actually are going to get the wave beam in this game. We're going to get what I'm going to call the fusion beam, because it's just a ridiculous, stupid looking gun. You're not supposed to be able to rapid fire your charge beam in Super Metroid, but in this game you can kind of do that. Is this where I want to go? I might get lost here, but it's fine, because you can see we've only been playing for 30 minutes. If the timer can be believed. I actually don't know how accurate the timer is. I suspect the timer is a little slower than the regular one. Wait a minute. Hold on. Oh, that just loops me back around. No, I wanted to go down. Okay, I see. I didn't want to loop back around. We did get slightly lost, but it's fine. I enjoy being a little bit lost some of the time. One of the first, actually the only project I have ever completed in a program called Zelda Classic, which is a Zelda... It's not a ROM hacking tool, it's like a Zelda level creation tool, basically. I never actually released any projects to the public, but when I got my hand on Zelda Classic, the first thing I decided to do was like an updated version of the main quest of Legend of Zelda. Like an easy mode version. Like, people always complain that Zelda is too obscure and too difficult. Like, what would an easy mode of the first quest look like? So I went to every room in the game and like removed a lot of the enemies. I changed all the blue dark nuts to red dark nuts. I did all that kind of stuff. Is this where I want to be? Down here, maybe. When you're doing that kind of thing, the actual work of it kind of becomes the point. You just get lost in it. Like, oh, I'm just going to redraw this room. I did decide to redraw the rooms using my NES. I had the NES Zelda booted up on a different screen as a guide. I didn't want to just load up the... There was a... You know, I've Let's Played it. I've Let's Played the Zelda 1 remake in Zelda Classic. And when you boot up the software, or at least when you did, this was 20 years ago, when you boot up the software, one of the first things you see is just the Zelda 1 first quest already there. My goal was to kind of learn how the software worked. And I thought that by remaking Zelda 1 and just kind of tweaking every room in the game a little bit, I could learn a lot about how the software worked. And I did. I learned quite a lot. But the work of it becomes the point of the thing. There is no overarching, what is my actual goal with this project? What do blue dark nuts actually represent in The Legend of Zelda? Is there, like... I can remove them or replace them, but does that actually get me closer to my goal? Does it actually achieve what I'm trying to achieve? And even that question was kind of beyond the scope of what I was doing then, because I wasn't trying to achieve anything other than, can I just learn the software? And having been in that position before, with Zelda Classic, with RPG Maker, you see how dumb this gun looks now? It looks like the stupid wide plus ice plus wave gun you get in Fusion, which is one of the... I don't want to rant about Metroid Fusion. Because I've been in that place, where I've had the creation tool in front of me, and I set a very easy goal for myself, just tweak every screen in the game a little bit, and I see that kind of mindset on display when I play this hack. So I criticize it, but it's also important to note that I empathize with it a great deal. I don't know the person who made it. I don't think I'll ever meet that person, unless they watch this video series and they yell at me in the comments. I'm not gonna try to seek them out and do like a grand interview or anything, but it feels very competent. It feels like they must have achieved what they set out to achieve, and I hope that they learned a lot from it. And I hope that their next project is bigger and badder and better. Or they've moved on to making Kaizo Super Metroid ROM hacks, which seems to be par for the course. Either way, I hope that they're happy, and I hope that they're staying safe during the pandemic. Just the rocket ship spin jump takes a lot of getting used to it. Super Metroid is also already difficult enough. Am I in the right spot here? I'm not. I gotta go up one and then back. Super Metroid spin jumps are the way they are for a specific purpose, and that purpose is not precision platforming. In fact, I was rewatching some old video essays by Joseph Anderson, who is he's my favorite video game critique guy on the YouTube right now. But he has some, let's call them strange opinions about Super Metroid and how he imagines the game is supposed to work. And I remember, what video was he even talking about this in now? It must have been Hollow Knight, 'cause that's the only game I can think of that he's done a critique for that could even be marginally compared to Super Metroid. But he points out correctly that the spin jump in Super Metroid is not built for precision platforming. And it's not. That's absolutely true. I would argue, though, that Super Metroid as a game isn't built for precision. Precision doesn't matter in Super Metroid unless you're doing the crazy speedrun stunts. Just playing the game on its own merits, the precision is not the point. And I think a jump with way more precision hurts the exploration elements of that style of game. I don't have to theory craft this. I have empirical evidence I can point to in both Metroid Fusion and Zero Mission. And now this game, too, I guess. Which... Well, this one isn't actually built for precision, so I'm going to take that back, I suppose. That goes the opposite direction of where I was... maybe AM2R does, though. I actually haven't played AM2R in a long time, and I wouldn't trust my memory about how the jumps in that game feel, having played so much Super in the past couple of months. But in any event, like Fusion and Zero Mission, the jumping feels terrible. It feels too slow. It feels really sluggish. The reason is because they made the precision elements more important. So now you can't clear as much physical space. Now you're not in the air as long. The scrolling of the screen and the Samus's movements don't match up as nicely as Super's typically does in those games. I think I want to jump from here. Yeah. And that's a flaw in Fusion and Zero Mission, I think. I think the jumping for the exploration types of games they are, for the types of games where combat is really more about sustained firepower and having a lot of energy, whereas something like, I guess Hollow Knight, since I brought up Joe Anderson's video, is more about avoiding damage and attacking and counterattacking, where Metroid has never been about the combat. You need that kind of precision control for... This jump's a lot easier in this version. I don't even think it's possible in NES without the little ball jump, but you can feel that even more when you play this game, because in trying to make the jumps feel more like Super Metroid, he's taken the precision slider and dragged it all the way off the screen. There's no sense of precision whatsoever. Your jumping is way too fast. Which, yeah, in NES Metroid, it is faster. So I get why he moved the slider in that direction. But look at the places you're going through. Every room in the NES Metroid, and therefore this game, are these cramped hallways and shafts. You're never in a large, wide open space that you really have to jump through, where the slower jumps make more sense because you need the screen to scroll into place before you decide where you want to land. If you played Super Metroid, if you remember what that game was like before you committed every screen in the game to memory, you know that feeling of, you know that there's generally a platform in that direction. If you had really fast jumping, you might miss the platform. This boss fight is terrible. So what he's done here is just taken Ridley and put him in a much larger room. This is the only... I was just saying there's no rooms in the game like this, and here's a game in the room like this. As far as I can tell, there's no... because he's constantly off screen. I don't think he's changed Ridley's AI at all from the Norfair fight in Super Metroid. But Ridley doesn't... We saw this in rotation, actually. Ridley's AI doesn't like being in a differently shaped room than the 2x1 room you fight him in. If he's in a room that's 2 screens tall by 1 screen wide, he works fine. If he's in a room that's 2 screens wide by 1 screen tall, he wigs out a little bit. It doesn't work. The AI kind of breaks. And if you put him in a 2x2 room like this, he just stays off screen the whole fight. I actually don't... He never comes all the way over to this wall. He will never meet me over here. So what's actually going to happen is I'm out of missiles now. I'm basically just going to fire off screen and hope for the best. Because he is moving. I can connect with him over there. And we're going to try to get out of the way of his fireballs if I can. When I get down to 200 health, I'm actually going to revert to an even dumber strategy than this. If that's possible. So I think that the rocket jump, the spin jump that goes from 0 to 60 immediately, that's so off-putting in this ROM hack, I think it's a combination of 2 things. I think the first thing is they were trying to replicate the lack of momentum that Samus has in NES Metroid using Super Metroid physics, and it doesn't work that well, or the tuning on it is not as fine. You can't make it feel just like the NES Metroid. This is probably as close as you can get in whatever Super Metroid ROM hack tool. He does come over here. I've never seen him do this before. So I might die, and that'll be interesting. I just live here now. Oh, he's going to explode. I've actually never seen him do that before in this hack either. I've never seen him actually do the grab suicide. So yeah, in trying to make the jump feel more like NES Metroid, but not actually having a solid target to hit, they like got close enough and then called it good. But the other half is most of the rooms you traverse in NES Metroid are just these tiny cramped spaces where the fast jump hinders more than helps. So it's really working against it from two directions. It feels like the two things were never looked at in conjunction. It feels like one day, it's like, alright, today I'm going to make the jump feel more like NES Metroid. We're going to do this by removing Samus's momentum. And that was probably tweaked a little bit until it felt like it was in the ballpark, and he's like, alright, good, this is close enough. The next day, he's like, alright, today we're going to build some maps. We're going to recreate some of the maps in the same basic dimensions that NES Metroid had. Remember, Samus is already bigger than she was in NES Metroid. She's 3 blocks tall, not 2 blocks. Actually, I think she might be like 2.5 or so. Yeah, she's like 2 3/4 if you measure her against this block here. He didn't think to change that, though, because obviously that would take a lot more coding. It would require creating new art assets. That would have been a very super difficult change. So that immediately went in the pile of, this is something I'm just not going to do. This is a constraint I'm going to work with it. Samus is 3 blocks tall. So any 2 block tall hallways, like this one here that I'm in, I'm just going to make 3 blocks instead. So that change got ticked off. Then the let's remove her momentum change got ticked off. Then he started remaking the maps in as close as he could get them as possible, and that got ticked off. But the thing is, when you tick all of those boxes in isolation, it feels like you're doing the job correctly. It feels like you're doing it properly, because every step of the way you've made the decision that gets you closest to your goal, that gets you closest to the NES Metroid that you're aiming for. But the connection of those decisions wasn't looked at.
Shoutouts to the Right Honourable Judge of New Scotland for sponsoring this video. If you liked the video and you want to see more, please tickle my thumb, leave a friendly comment, and ring my little bell.